Everyone, to another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones, and we are just cruising along in the NFL season. A lot of betting lines to get into. As always, if you are just joining us first time, not a problem. We are a very fast and rapid paced show that basically dives into the betting lines. Obviously, we do multiple sports, but because the NFL is in season, that's the sport that we are gravitating to. And we're also available every Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12 p.m., exclusively on NY48 WWON. So we always encourage you guys to get social with us. And also a reminder that Back Your Play is for entertainment purposes only. Always bet with your head, not over it. And of course, gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. As I mentioned, as we start to creep into the month of October, this is kind of when you separate the boys from the men. It gets a little dicey. You got to deal with benchings and injuries and inconsistent play. And that's typically what happens. And with that, we bring in a guy we really never want to replace, but our good friend, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Lloyd Vance on SR 1029 FM, The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network, based out of Florida. And of course, don't forget you can give Lloyd a follow at Lloyd Vance on all social media platforms. He's kind enough to join us as he typically does. My friend, how are you?
Doing good, Q. You know, we're at the quarter point of the season and we're starting to see the contenders and the pretenders, but still a lot up in the air. We even saw a tie.
Correct. I mean, we saw a crazy tie in that Dallas game against the Packers, in a game where the Packers led. I mean, it's funny because you think about this. You go back to that Rams and Eagles game, which bit everyone in the butt, right? You go back to the Giants again at home, 6.5-point dogs against the Chargers, starting Jackson Dart. All right, am I going to grab Jackson Dart first score anytime touchdown at 4,500 and take the number? Then you look at Miami, Darren Waller. That guy's been disappeared, MIA for 3 years. Oh, by the way, 2 touchdowns plus 6,500. So it's absolutely crazy what's going on. A lot of scoring, and you and I have kind of pointed that out over the last several weeks. A lot of scoring, defense is a little behind the offenses, but a lot of overs are hitting. I think that trend continues, to be quite honest with you. So with that, and again, we got some storylines too with some of these injuries as we start with week 5 already in the NFL. Thursday night football, 49ers and the Rams. 49ers 3-1, the Rams 3-1. The Rams got the big win against the Colts. The 49ers stubbed their toe against Jacksonville. I thought they should have stuck, believe it or not, with Mac Jones and still give it a little bit of time with Brock Purdy. But you can tell right now, again, quarterback issue with San Francisco. That's one of the reasons this line is overblown at 6.5. The total is 43. So you get a Thursday night matchup, a battle between NFC West squads.
Yeah, Q. This one started out, line was a lot closer now. Where I saw it was 8.5 at a certain point. The Rams are home favorite. And you talk about the Niners, and I'm sure we'll hit the Ravens later, but those two squads have been just decimated by injuries.
Yep.
And the Niners will not have Pearsall's not going to play in this game. You talk about Brock Purdy's not going to play. And it's just a mash unit out there. And we'll see if Mac Jones can come in there and make a difference. I expect them to really lean on Christian McCaffrey, try to get him the football. But it's going to be a tough assignment because the Rams are playing very well at this point in the season. And yes, they did lose the Eagles on that block field goal everybody's talking about. But Puka Nacua was playing at a very high level. Last week, 13 catches on 15 targets. They're getting the ball to him early and often. They also have Devontae Adams. And as long as Kyron Williams can protect the football, I do expect the Rams to win this game now. 8.5 may be a lot to cover, though, for them.
Yeah, I mean, that line's fluctuating as we speak. I'll pull up some current numbers with the movement because it's always it's very fluid, as we know. Just kind of give you an idea. Right now, it's ballooned back up to 9. That on DK with the total 43.5. 49ers are plus 350 on the money line. You mentioned the Rams doing with defense, and then kind of, I guess you can say, knocking back the Colts down to reality. I do like the Rams in the number, though, at home in this one. All right, Sunday. You got the 9:30 affair. I'm a little shocked that Flacco got benched for this game, but I pretty much called it during the week and even last week on Q. It didn't. Well, I should say this: it didn't shock me, but you're throwing a rookie quarterback, a young quarterback on the road. I guess in this case, it's not a home game because they're playing in England. I thought maybe you stick with Flacco one more week, but he's been so bad for the Cleveland Browns. They take on Minnesota in London. Minnesota's laying 3.5. You just see the quarterbacking issues with some of these teams. They cannot rely on the backup. The Vikings, hey, they're 2-2. They've dealt with injuries. Maybe they should have gave Sam Darnold that contract and that money. And then you look at the Browns, they're going to go to Dylan Gabriel, who I feel as though I think Shador Sanders at this point, this kid's a clown, to be quite honest with you. It speaks volumes when you got the backup and the veteran basically taking little pod shots at him. But that's a conversation for another day. Minnesota's laying 3.5. Here's my look, but I'm not even touching this game. If you actually backed me in a corner, I would probably say the total, which sits at 36.5.
Yeah, Q, this is a game I've been looking at, and everybody was excited last week. We had football overseas, and you get up early Sunday morning with your cup of coffee, and you're able to watch that first game at around 9:30 in the morning. And this one's going to be in Tottenham, England, and yeah, you're talking about a battle of two backup quarterbacks here. You got Carson Wentz on one side, and you kind of hold your nose thinking about the way he's played the last couple weeks. Last week against the Steelers, he had 2 interceptions, had a third that was right in hand, and the guy stepped out of bounds.
Horrible.
Just very inconsistent on his part. The Vikings be smart to lean on Mason. Brian Flores' defense is playing at a pretty high level. They were in spots they were good against the Steelers, and then the Browns. That's their calling card. I mean, their defense has been doing a great job underneath Jim Schwartz. They're one of the top 5 in the NFL, but unfortunately, they're 0-4 at this time. I mean, 1-3 at this time, and Flacco, too many turnovers. So yeah, they turned to Dylan Gabriel. Everyone's saying, "Oh, he played well in the preseason," in limited spots where he did have a touchdown and no interceptions. Looked like he was control team, but his arm is kind of deficient. So expect some really short throws in this game. Like you, look but don't touch. I think on the money line, though, I would go with the Vikings in this one, but it's probably going to be a close game coming down to field goal.
Minus 218 on the money line. And it's funny, too, because I said last week on Fridays on Q, when you have these backups like this, grab the team, either special teams, the opposition's defense, or special teams. And you saw, obviously, they didn't get the pick 6, but they did get the special teams play the Lions did in roasting Cleveland. And right now, plus 4.5, you're still looking at, no value, right? I mean, you're looking at minus 105, where the Vikings, again, minus 4.5, minus 105. So you want to lay 115, 105 respectively to win back 100. Have at it. I'm not doing it. Raiders and the Colts. Colts come down back to reality right now. They are a 6.5 point favorite at home. Daniel Jones kind of reverted back to some of the bad habits. Now, obviously, that game changed when the receiver lost the ball on that long reception. Should have been a touchdown. I mean, that's just a absolutely bizarre play. And then you get Howard abruptly retiring from Indianapolis. Now, I don't know how much of an effect that's going to have. You have also the All-Pro Leonard was retiring with the Colts, which, again, doesn't really mean anything at this point. But the Colts kind of came back down to reality a little bit against a pretty good Rams team. And the Raiders, you just can't figure them out. I mean, they are the definition of a sporadic, inconsistent team. They lose the heartbreaker to the Bears 25-24 on a last-second field goal. So where are you at in this one?
It's an interesting game because I think it's a get-right game for the Colts. And we've talked about their ascension and how Daniel Jones has been playing a lot better in terms of protecting the football. They have Jonathan Taylor, who can run downhill. Pittman got involved last week at a touchdown, and then defensively with DeForest Buckner and the rest of that group. So I expect them to get after Geno Smith. Smith's made a lot of errors, 7 interceptions, tops in the NFL, and they should lean on Genty. But I think in the end, you go with the Colts, and I do think they cover the 7 points.
Yeah, Geno Smith, he has just been, I mean, it's who he is. He's a very sporadic quarterback. He's been like that throughout the course of his career. Daniel Jones, his passing yards right now, actually his passing yards. Well, actually, I'm more concerned with his rushing props. Let me give you that for a moment. Daniel Jones uh, over 9.5 for longest rush. I'm actually grabbing that because I think he's going to break the pocket here and there. I'm not going to pull up the passing props. I just think this line's too high. I think the Colts win it, but I just 6.5 too rich for my blood. You know, I thought that I gave you a game that I bookmarked for Jackson Dart to start. It was the Saints game for the Giants. Obviously, he got the win. Played well as a rookie, gave the Giants a little hope, a little buzz. They beat a pretty good team in the Chargers. Their defense was able to force turnovers in Justin Herbert. The Giants were actually favored in this game, and now it's flipped where New Orleans is a 1.5 point favorite. Now, I don't know if that's because they played Buffalo well. I don't know if that's because Jackson Dart's going on the road, but I absolutely love the Giants and their defense in this spot.
Yeah, Q, this is a game I kind of had bookmarked in terms of the Giants taking that next step in terms of, okay, maybe they can get into the mix, not to be in the basement in NFC East. That was a good quality win for them last week. The Chargers, I think they sprung a trap on them, and Jackson Dart played within the system. I had 111 yards passing. He had a rushing touchdown. He ran for 54 yards, and he is firmly in control of that offense. So, good spot for them. And I think a big key for this game is that Giants defensive line. I think Burns and the rest of those guys are going to get after Spencer Rattler, who's still learning on the job, and he may make some mistakes. So I think the Giants win this one and cover the number.
Yeah, defensively, look, Carter made plays, Thibodeau made plays, Lawrence made plays, the secondary made plays. I like the Giants outright in this game. Like I'm leaning towards sprinkling a little bit on that money line. I also like a Jackson Dart anytime touchdown as well. Cowboys and the Jets, you mentioned the Cowboys putting up a lot of points. The Jets had a get right game, right? The Jets had an opportunity against a bad Miami team. They should have blown their doors off. So many turnovers, including the red zone turnover with the fumble when the back was going in for the touchdown, kickoff return, punt return, fumbles, fumbles, fumbles. It's an extremely undisciplined team. Fields is not the answer, even though he had the nice electric play. He's not the answer. And I think Aaron Glenn is over his head. I think if there's a game that you can see the Cowboys take out a lot of their frustration, even though their defense gives up a lot of points, I think it's this week. And I think they go on the road and hammer the Jets.
Yeah, Q is an interesting one because you think the Jets at home would they be desperate, but the discipline's not there. And you talk about the mistakes that they had in terms of the turnovers, and they're still having problems protecting the quarterback. And I don't think they're running the ball with any effectiveness. Breece Hall did have some runs in the game, but it's really Justin Fields running around here and there, and Garrett Wilson making some plays. I did like what Taylor did coming in tight end position. That young guy's kind of come along, but Dallas. No defense, but that offense can put up some points. And I expect Javonte Williams to have a nice game, Dak Prescott. And then don't forget about George Pickens. He's emerging. Yeah, he may have Sauce Gardner kind of shadowing him around the field, but I
Who
think
stinks,
Dallas,
by the way? Gardner stinks.
he doesn't live up to that, that moniker, all the hype. He got the money. He's the next Dion, Revis Island, except he's not living up to that. And I don't know if it's because the pass rush is not getting home or what it is, but he's having some problems in coverage, and George Pickens is going to work downfield, and then you have Ferguson over the middle. So I expect Dallas to put up some points and cover the number here in this situation.
Prescott passes for 279 per game, 42 more than his over-under set on Sunday. I think he goes for 300. He's gone over his passing yards prop bet total twice this season. He's thrown a touchdown 3 times this season in 4 games. Here's a couple stats for you. Jets are giving up 199 passing yards. Cowboys rank worse in the NFL in passing defense with 297. So maybe Fields goes off a little bit, but they got to get in the end zone. And this is a team that consistently turns the football over, and they don't turn it over. And that's for that reason. It's one of the main points of emphasis. I do like Dallas on the road. 1 o'clock, Bo Nix traveling down to the link. Denver against Eagles, who just figure out ways to win week in and week out. I mean, the Heat down there in Tampa. And I'm still not ready to sit there and say this team is a juggernaut. And I'm wondering, look, I know it's easy, low bearing fruit to bring up. But the whole AJ Brown, you're winning football games and yet you're tweeting out certain things. You got to have an interview at your locker room talking about, uh, the tweet's not about the players or the play calling, or the quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Kevin Patullo. And remember now, and this is not brought up enough, Nick Sirianni didn't interview anyone for the offensive coordinator position. He handpicked Patullo. Explain to me how you have weapons like the Eagles do, and yet they can't do anything offensively. They're having negative passing yards in quarters and halves. That's unacceptable for a defending Super Bowl team, Super Bowl champ.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks in terms of that offense, and yes, they've gotten it done. They're 4-0, but you have to wonder when this championship DNA, find a way to win type of mentality is going to wear out, because they've made a lot of mistakes in terms of penalties, and they've been very fortunate on making big plays, especially on special teams. So this is a distraction, and in this locker room, you have to wonder, is this eventually going to fracture them? AJ Brown, 14 receptions on 28 targets. He's not getting the ball in it. And he's saying, okay, well, I'm paid like the rest of these guys, Chase and Jefferson out there. Use me. And Patullo, yeah, he's learning on the job, Q. And sometimes some guys are better lieutenants than the guy in charge. And you're starting to wonder, okay, is this the right mix? But as long as they keep winning, people are going to say, don't worry about it. But yeah, you're right. Hurts has struggled at points in games. Struggled in the first half against Tampa, and then last week he struggled in the second half. So, not sure what they're going to do here. And don't forget, Denver's defense is very good. Lead the NFL in 14 sacks. So I've been back and forth in this game.
Eagles are laying 3.5. By the way, I spit the bit thinking that Cincinnati was going to keep it relatively close with the 7.5 the other night. Jake from State Farm stinks. Denver's had some tough losses. They haven't won on the road just yet. I mean, do you like Denver? If you like Denver covering, then you certainly should like them outright in this game because the line's only 3.5.
Yeah, I think in the end, I think the Eagles are going to keep winning, and
Yeah,
we're not going to get our answer on them till maybe later in the season. When they play after their bye, they're
Green Bay.
at Green Bay. They have Detroit, and then the last 3 weeks of the season at Washington, at Buffalo, Washington. So it's shaping up for the Eagles to have a very good record. The road through the NFC clearly looks like it's going to go through Philadelphia, but there's going to be some question marks, and they have to clean up their offensive scheme because Saquon's not running the ball well. They have some injuries in the offensive line. Just a lot of things. You're like, okay, are they going to clean this situation up?
Yeah, agree. Denver's an enigma, even though I have them in the Super Bowl. If they go on the road and beat the Eagles, that's kind of saying something. But they're going to have to play that perfect game, and I think defensively, Fangio is going to have some exotic blitzes and alignments against Bo Nix, who at times looks great, and then other times kind of you got to get rid of it, son. Or don't throw it in that spot. Sometimes he does that. I want to remind everyone, this is BYP Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quiñones here, our good friend Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us for a couple moments as he typically does throughout the NFL season. BYP, entertainment purposes only, gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. And we are live and coming at you not only on the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, but also on NY48 WWON every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. All right, we are approaching right around the half. We'll take a quick time out. We'll come back on the other side. A lot more 1 o'clock games to dive into, 4 o'clock, and then, of course, Sunday night and Monday night football to close things out. Keep it locked in to this edition of Back Your Play. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quiñones here. Lloyd Vance kind enough to join us. We're ripping through these 1 o'clock games. Some of these games are just for the dogs, man. Miami against Carolina. The Panthers are a team I thought maybe would make a little bit of a run, and hasn't been the case. They're 1-3, laying, getting. They are getting 1.5. They're not a good football team right now. The quarterbacks regress. They can't score. Their defense just always seems to play out of position. I don't like this game because I don't trust Tua, and I'm sorry, I don't trust Bryce Young. But the Dolphins come in 1-3. They're also winless on the road. And by the way, they've scored 18. They average 18 points on the road. I mean, it's just not getting it done with that offense. And by the way, again, doubly, no Tyreek Hill, so you lose a weapon. I just don't like this game. I mean, there's nothing appealing about this game. I mean, would I take a flyer on Darren Waller again for 2 touchdowns? Yeah, maybe I'll throw $5 on it. But other than that, I don't like this game at all. Miami 1.5, and the total's 44.5.
Yeah, Q, not a lot to get excited about in
Now,
this one, but there is a rookie in this game, Ted McMillan, playing for the Panthers. I do like him, and maybe look at his prop in terms of his yardage catches. Something to watch, But when you look at the Miami Dolphins, you say, okay, maybe they turned a corner the other night. They did get that ugly win we talked about over the Jets, but
yep.
they lose Tariq Hill in the process to that gruesome knee injury, and hopefully he comes back healthy. But now, too, it's going to have to find somebody else to step up. Chen is playing very well out of the backfield for them, catching a lot of passes and also running. So I think Chen is going to have his work, and then also Waddle will eat. But the thing is, can the Dolphins defense stop Carolina? And Bryce Young, you're right. He's so inconsistent. You can't expect him to really put up that much. And if you really said, all right, make a pick, Lloyd, I'd say go with Miami, and they should be able to cover that number. But this may be an ugly one.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up game props. Special teams, you might get that pick 6. I'm trying to find Waller's. I was curious just to look at his receiving yards. They have him at, over 15.5. Jeez Louise. I mean, that's, again, hard pass. Thank you very much. Texans have been one of the disappointments of the season, but, hold my beer. Here comes the Baltimore Ravens, doubly inconsistent and disappointing. They've dropped 2 straight, 1-3 to start the season. And listen, I mean, Lamar Jackson, the injury of Lamar Jackson. What else is new? Lamar Jackson's always banged up. Again, they have not talked about his status, his injury. It's a hammy. I'm waiting to see probably closer to kickoff to see what the line does. But this is one of those games I can't trust the Texans, and fool me once with Baltimore. I liked them in week 1. They blew a 15-point lead. And since then, their season's kind of been downhill. These two teams are, I would say, early on, 2 big disappointments coming out of the AFC.
Yeah, Q, this is a desperation bowl special, and both teams have been a disappointment. And yes, the Texans finally got a win, but it was against the Titans, who are just hapless. And Stroud, you like to see him get the ball out of his hands, get it to Nico Collins, and then see if they can have some running behind Woody Marks, that rookie that's really kind of popped last week. The Ravens, we talked about like the Niners. Matabike, neck, who's on IR, Lamar Jackson with a hamstring, Ronnie Stanley with a high ankle, Vinoy with a hamstring. I could go on and on. They're like a mash unit, but somehow I just feel like as a home dog that the Ravens will find a way to win this game, maybe come down to coaching. And I think Harbaugh may have a special teams player or something up his hat. Their young kicker has done a nice job. So I'll go with the Ravens, and it's probably going to be Cooper Rush, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Texans win this one, but I'll say somehow the Ravens pull it out.
They got to ride the legs of Derrick Henry, period.
And he's always played very well against the Texans, going back to his days with the Titans. And as long as that offensive line can get him a little daylight, yes, they should use him, maybe run him out of the Wildcat in certain situations.
You get him going downhill. He's had a quiet start this season, just like Saquon as well for the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, 4 o'clock. That's your 1 o'clock kickoff. 4 o'clock slate. Titans and the Cardinals. Again, disappointing for Arizona. And the Cardinals, Uh, they just they can't figure it out offensively. They give up too many chunk plays. Their offense has kind of been a molasses. The Titans are a bad football team. I don't know. Like, but let me go back to something real quick with the Texans. Did you hear CJ Stroud basically saying he feels old?
No, I didn't hear that. I mean, come on, CJ. I mean, what the losses are building up on you, and you can't take it. I mean,
Well,
seriously.
that's again, that's kind of what I wanted to kind of say to you. Like, I don't know if he's the guy. To be quite honest, I don't know if he's the guy. And then conversely, with the Titans, Cam Ward, he says things that you probably shouldn't be saying out loud, even though you love the transparency and the honesty. It's pretty obvious that the losing is starting to weigh on this kid. I think it continues on Sunday. Arizona's laying 7.5. The total is 42.5. The Titans just cannot get out of their own way. And listen, man, I mean, honestly, I'm finding it very hard to find a win with this team.
Yeah, and Q going, getting the Stroud first. I think at Ohio State it's just too easy. They have just too many weapons behind them, a great offensive lineman, and much like these Alabama quarterbacks, you're like, all right, you're not sure what you're getting because of all the 5 stars around them. But we'll see. And then getting to Cam Ward, yeah, he probably should keep his mouth shut. But I think things are trending not well for Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Titans. Getting a little testy with the media, and his play calling's not the best. Not a lot of playmakers around Ward, and he is struggling, as you said. Arizona, that defense with Collins and the rest of those guys is getting better, and I think they're going to get some turnovers in this game, and expect Kyler Murray to get right in this one. So I expect the Cardinals to win this one. It's a big number, but I think they cover it because once they start rolling, I think they put up some points.
It is a big number, but they have to start banging some wins, right? They started 2-0, kind of like the Saints did last year. And now they're in the midst of a 2-game slide. And Harrison Jr., maybe this is the game where he regains a little bit of confidence and catches the friggin' football, which would be a novel idea. Tampa Bay, tough loss against the Eagles last week. Baker kind of went back to Baker, even though he did make some good plays, tough plays, extending drives. But that red zone pick was a backbreaker and a killer. They go on the road, tough spot to play in Seattle. Seattle's laying 3.5. Both squads come in 3-1. The total is 45.5.
Yeah, Q. This is a prove it game. You have two teams kind of with playoff aspirations, and tough loss for the Buccaneers last week. And Baker's going to get the football out of his hands. We'll see if Bucky Irvin's going to be able to play. He's a little banged up, but they do have Rashad White, and now Chris Godwin's kind of come in there, and he's making some plays well with Ibeka. So I expect the Buccaneers to come back, but Seattle's so tough at home, but it's not like it used to be. We talked about that 12th man and the advantage that's not there, and that defense at certain spots is struggling, particularly Reek Willens is not covering so very well. So I expect the Bucs to kind of take care of that. And don't forget about Todd Bowles blitzing Darnold. He's familiar with him. He's going to get after him and try to make him make some mistakes to Winfield and those guys in the back. So I expect the Buccaneers to win this one in a close one. And the Bucs kicker is playing very well. I expect him for a game winner here.
Yeah, I mean, Darnold hasn't kind of lit the world on fire, but they are, um, 3-1. I mean, the only loss was to Seattle in a game to the 49ers in a game where they only scored 13 points and lost 17-13 in that game as well. I'm leaning towards Seattle, kind of on the same boat that you're on. Lions and Cincinnati. Cincinnati's just, I mean, you almost feel bad because you just see the drop off when it comes to quarterbacking play. And this is one of the reasons I said, why not take a flyer on Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson, call the Giants, get a trade going, get a third round, give up a third or a fourth round pick for one of these guys. Browning's not the answer. They stink. They're laying, the Lions are 10.5. The Lions right now, quietly, right? I mean, you're starting to see bad loss to open up the season against Green Bay, 52-38. 34. I mean, their offense is cooking right now.
Yeah, the Lions, they are starting to come together, particularly Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, last week, 7 catches, 2 touchdowns, and he was just dynamic in this game. And as we always say, it always comes down to Jared Goff. If he's protected, he's going to make good decisions with the football, and that's what he did last week against Cleveland. I expect him to do the same against the Bengals because let's face it, their defense, other than Hendrickson, there's just not a lot of teeth there. And you know Dan Campbell, he's going to want to put up some serious points against them, maybe try to go for a 50 burger. As long as the weather is good, I expect the Lions to win this one big. And you talk about Jake Browning, he has struggled mightily. They're 2-2 though, Q. And they're still in the mix. At 2-2, you still can make the playoffs. And I do agree with you. Why not look at other options out there before November 4th, which is a trade deadline, whether it's Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, or even Kirk Cousins. So they got to find the answer because that team was built around Joe Burrow and it's falling apart quickly.
But that's the thing. I mean, you keep waiting too long, and Pittsburgh now they're 3-1, feeling pretty good, right? Uh, Baltimore, if they get a healthy Lamar Jackson, maybe they right the ship. I would say to myself, hey, the time is there to maybe grab a wild card, but you got to fix the quarterbacking play, period. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, 20% off your first purchase, BYP20, and get social with us at Rich Q on Q, of course, on IG, X, and TikTok. Rich Q on the mic. Lloyd Vance kind enough to join us. We are midway through this edition of Back Your Play. We'll keep it rolling along. The Commanders 2-2 against the Chargers, coming off that first loss against the Giants. They're at home laying 2.5. Again, quarterbacking play, right? We just don't know about Daniels. He plans to play versus the Chargers, but how effective will he be? I mean, look, they've got the Chargers, the Bears, the Cowboys, the Chiefs. Two of those games are winnable. Bears and the Cowboys are winnable. Chargers and then going on the road, Chiefs. Now you're talking 2-2. Now this would ultimately be a 4-4 team after 8 games. Probably not what the Commanders expected, but given the fact that your quarterback is not 100%, you might want to grab it because it gets tougher. Seattle, Detroit, Denver, Eagles to close out the season. They got to start piling up some wins here if they want to get back to the playoffs. I just don't know how effective Jaden Daniels is going to be in this game. Debo's starting to come on a little bit, which is great. I think the Chargers are a very good football team. I feel as though we don't criticize Justin Herbert as much as we should. I think he's a very good quarterback, but some of his decision making at times and some of his picks, these are poorly thrown balls that at this stage of his career, I mean, we're talking about a guy that's been in the NFL. This is what, his 7th season already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. His 6th season? No. Yeah, his 6th season. You shouldn't be making those types of mistakes. So first and foremost, where you at with Washington? Do you like the Commanders in this game? And then give me your thoughts on Herbert.
Yeah, the Commanders, it's a tough situation for them, Q. We talked about the age of this roster, particularly on defense. They have some older guys, and you wonder if they can make it through a 17-game marathon season. And they're getting Jaden Daniels back. That's all well and good, but he's not going to be able to make as many plays with his legs being banged up there with the knee. And JCM, the running back, they're not sure if he's the guy to replace Austin Eckler. He's coming in there. He's solid, but he's a rookie, and then McLaren's banged up as well. So that Commanders' offense is just kind of struggling, and we'll see how they do. I expect Herbert to kind of step in there and try to make some plays down the field. He's really trying. Lately, he's been Keenan Allen, and we've seen Quentin make a lot of plays on the outside for them as well. But struggled last week, 23 of 41, 203, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions against the Giants. And there were a couple almost interceptions as well in this game. It's got to make better decisions with the football. A lot of people are going to say, okay, it's the offensive line. They lost Slater and some other guys up front. Alt's not going to play this week. But he's got to play well. I expect him to in a bounce-back situation. And Washington, as you said, they're still trying to find their footing.
Yeah, I like the Chargers for this reason and this reason alone. I know their offensive line is banged up, but I don't think Washington possesses the type of pass rush that Denver, the Giants, and even to some extent Kansas City. Hence, Herbert should be upright in this one with time to throw, and the injuries are coming at a bad time. Too early for the Washington Commanders at this stage of the game. I still believe they will be a playoff team when it's all said and done. Maybe 9 get you in, But, 10, 11, 12 that we were talking about, I'm just not seeing it. And it's unfortunate. You get hit with the injuries early in a season. That happens. The Pats and the Bills. Bills quietly 4-0 at home. That line is 7.5. Patriots, another one of those teams. I just I can't figure them out for the life of me, right? You lose to the Raiders, but then you get a gut check win against Miami. You come back, you lose to the Steelers, and then you blow out a bad Panthers team. Now you got to step up and wait. And they've got 3 straight games, mind you, on the road: Bills, Saints, and the Titans. So the line, a little blown up, as we like to say. Buffalo's always a tough spot. It could be worse. You got to play these guys in January. They're getting October, Sunday night football. Buffalo 7.5, totals 49.
Yeah, this is a divisional battle, and sometimes you throw all the stats and everything out the window when these two rivals play each other. But the thing is with the Bills, they're just going about their business. And last week they took care of New Orleans 31-19. They did let them hang around a little bit longer than I thought they would. But I expect in this one that Josh Allen's going to put the Superman cape on and try to make some plays with his leg. Cook has played very well, and then obviously they'll get the ball secure, and they're 2 tight ends. So the Patriots kind of vulnerable on defensively. Yes, they have Gonzalez, but some of the other guys in the back, they're not very good at coverage. The Patriots, you hope they got right last week playing Carolina. They beat them up pretty good. Drake May, you saw him play effectively, getting on the edge. It's going to be interesting to see McDermott against May, see if he can make some mistakes. But I expect the Bills to win this one. That 7.5 points, that may be a little high. I think they do win it, but it may be by a touchdown.
Kansas City, I wrote them off. Here we go. Very impressive performance against the Ravens. I mean, Patrick Mahomes turning back the clock. We thought they were going to be able to get the offense going a little bit. It was one of our keys to the game, even though I didn't take them, but I thought they can run a little bit, slinging a little bit. You saw that vintage Mahomes when they waxed the Baltimore Ravens in that game that Lamar Jackson was knocked out of with that hammy injury. And then you got Jacksonville. I still can't figure this team out. I'm not buying in Jacksonville like some of my listeners are that tune into On Q. Yeah, you got the win against the 49ers. They're still, I feel as though this team is still not able to utilize some of their weapons, i.e. Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis Hunter, I talked about him on my show just the other day. He's played in 59% of snaps on offense, only 13 receptions, Q, 118, no TDs, and then he's still trying to do this dual threat thing, 39% on defense, no interceptions, not making a lot of plays there either. So they need to really kind of figure out the game plan for him. And we've always talked about this. It's Trevor Lawrence. Everything runs through him in terms of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, ATN has played pretty well for them, but you're not seeing Brian Thomas make some plays as well on the outside for him. So tough assignment for them going up against the Chiefs. The Chiefs, tried to bury him, Q, but they're starting to come back. And Andy Reid's starting to find his playmakers. They got Worthy back last week. He had that big run, 35 yards, and then he also was involved in the passing game, opened everything up for everybody else. You'd still like to see some more running out of them. Mahomes is their leading rusher, but he did throw for 4 touchdowns last week, throwing to 9 different receivers, looked very comfortable. I expect Kansas City to win this one on Monday night and cover the number.
Jacksonville, after Kansas City, they have Seattle and the Rams. So the benefit is these 3 games are at home. They go on the road and have the Raiders and the Texans winnable games. But, this is kind of their meat and potato stretch. I mean, if they get through this unscathed and you look at that division, they might have been that sneaky good play. And the Colts coming out of the AFC South. I think one of the reasons I felt Kansas City was leaking oil because they couldn't run the football. But it's amazing what happens when, you get that big win and now you look around the AFC West and okay, Denver's got some flaws. Chargers have some flaws. The Raiders, you don't have to worry about. Maybe this is the time, as you mentioned, you don't write Kansas City off after 5 games. I do like them in this spot. They're still Kansas City, right? Until otherwise, but I haven't seen them in that dominating fashion. like in years past. By the way, Falcons, Bears, Packers, Steelers have bye weeks. All right, quick timeout. We're going to come back on the other side. Any player props? We might go around the league for a couple moments as well. Keep it locked in. It's another edition of BYP with Q. Rich Quiñones here. As always, get social with us. We're presented by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. BYP20. That's your promo code. Check it out in the show notes. You'll save 20% off your first purchase as the weather's starting to cool down. We are creeping in October. Definitely go online as well and use the affiliate link. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football and Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game every Monday, 8 to 9 p.m. Give him a follow at Lloyd Vance. Quick timeout. We'll see if Lloyd's got any type of player props or we'll continue to look around the NFL. A very busy edition of BYP. We'll come back on the other side and close things out. All right, welcome back to this edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quiñones here. Don't forget the audio version of the show is on Buzzsprout, which connects to Amazon, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. You guys have been fantastic with the downloads. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q and connect with us every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on NY48 WWON and also available on Roku. Check out streaming on a budget as well. All right. Do you have any player props that might stand out? If not, that's okay because we hit a couple during the previews. But if you have some, fire away.
Well, I don't really per se have a player prop. There's just a couple of things that I think folks should definitely look at in
Go ahead.
terms of McLaughlin, the kicker for the Bucks. I talked about him in terms of, you know, 50-yard field goal or more. I think he's going to make a couple. Last week he made a 65-yarder. I mean, he's been kicking the ball very well. You got to watch for him in that game. Jackson Dart, watch for his rushing yards, Q. I think the number was pretty low. I think it's around 20 to 30. Last week he got 54. So I think he gets that. And we talk about that New Orleans defense. I'm just not sure they're going to be able to cover that. And then, of course, look at Worthy for the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night for the anytime touchdown. I think he's going to get in the end zone. Andy Reid's really starting to get him involved in that playbook, jet sweeps, short passes, etc.
Yeah, the Jackson Dart, I think that's a good call. Let me pull up the numbers right here. DK, rushing yards. So, Dart, wow. 25 plus minus 285. Jeez. I mean, to get value, you actually have to play 50 plus at plus 165 and then 60 plus at 258. Wow. I mean, that's his passing numbers over 180 yards, plus 107. Spencer Rattler, speaking of which, always play his under passing yards because he stinks. But Jackson Dart, I mean, that's a large number, man. The kid's got to learn not to take these hits, by the way. But you're going off that first series where he ran all over the place. Even the one play that got called back was like a 30-something yard scamper. Actually, while I have it, let's pull up his here you go. I'll tell you another one, Scatterbill.
Yeah, we didn't talk about him earlier. I mean, Q, he is running the football down the hill, and we've maligned that offensive line a lot, but they're giving him just enough, and he's a downhill runner. I mean, last week 25 rushes, 79 yards, and his pad level. I love the way that he runs. Q.
Scatterbill rushing his longest rush yard over 14 and a half. Jackson Dart over 13 and a half. But Scatterboo's numbers uh, over 17 rushing yards minus 120. Let me get for rushing yards over 66 and a half. So you're really still, again, you're laying you're laying 114 to win 100. I mean, well, that's just kind of give you, if you lay $5, you're winning 938. That just kind of gives you an idea. So you're not really getting, your substantial amount of value, but ultimately, he's good for an anytime touchdown. That's the other thing with a lot of these apps. They freeze, they suspend right as the team's getting ready to go into the red zone because they're manipulating the lines and you're trying to get the best odds, and you got to be very fast. A lot of times when you start to see the team creep beyond midfield, that's when you should start to look at the next time any score, because again, the odds aren't going to change that much. But when you get right to the goal line, for a fact that, all right, tush push, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. So you're going to get zero EV. You're going to get negative value for that. And then I also believe with some of these backup quarterbacks, I still think play the opposition's defense or special teams. The defense meaning it's a fumble, return, a pick six, because some of these quarterbacks, even when they're down, they're just going to take some shots and chances, and they're bad. They're prone to turning over the football.
Correct, you. And I directly think of the Vikings in situations with Carson Wentz. Definitely look at his interception total. It's probably going to be at least 1 to 1.5. And I think he's going to hit that number. And that Browns defense has a lot of teeth with Denzel Ward, and Myles Garrett's going to be getting after him.
Let me give you passing props. Carson Wentz. So plus 102 for 200 plus yards. 2+ touchdowns, plus 168. Dylan Gabriel, 1 touchdown, minus 211. I mean, I'm not really inclined. He's definitely, Carson Wentz is good for a pick. But I also think if you look at defense in these games, also touchdown score on this one, Jerry Jeudy, I would go anytime touchdown. And if you're playing Minnesota, who they haven't gotten involved in the offense yet is the tight end, Hawkinson. So, Addison's always typically good for a touchdown here and there. All right, anything stand out? Last weekend, Flacco gets benched. Sanders miming. Jackson with the injury. Dart shines. The Steelers quietly 3-1. I know we typically do this during the week on cue, but what stood out, and then we always do our Vance's view with our game balls and our lackey, and we can throw that into the mix. But 2 to 3 things that kind of stood out for you last weekend.
Yeah, Q, I thought it was a very good victory for the Steelers over there in Ireland. And they talked about the importance of winning that game for the Rooney family. They have ties over there. And they've been very efficient in terms of Aaron Rodgers, a lot of short throws. DK Metcalf, yes, he had the long one, but he broke it and ran it the majority of the way. And then they had Gainwell kind of step up for them. TJ Watt was electric in the game. 5 tackles, had a sack and an interception. So expect them to kind of come back after their bye and maybe salt away that division. So that was one of the things that I really thought stood out. Atlanta, Bijan Robinson, I mean, he played extremely well. He almost had 200 total yards in their victory. They're unfortunately on a bye as well, but he's playing very well. And then there were a couple people on the hot seat, and they're getting testy. You see Brian Callahan. The Titans were 2 of 11 on third downs, 0-1 on fourth downs. It just shows ineptness of the Titans. And Q, yeah, I'm starting to believe, are they the 2008 Detroit Lions that didn't win a game? It's going to be a tough go for him. You may see him before it's all said and done not make it to December. And then I'll just throw in as well, the whole AJ Brown situation, I'm going to have my eye on that.
What do you? How do you? What do you think? There's some merit to that? Do you think it's pretty obvious he's unhappy? But what? Again, Nick Sirianni handpicked Kevin Petullo. He didn't interview anyone. So for a defending Super Bowl champ that has all these weapons, explain to me, for the life of me, how do you have negative passing yards in quarters and halves? It makes no sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And you know, a coach is always going to say it's execution, but something is amiss with this offense. And you talk about last week, AJ Brown had 2 receptions for 7 yards. I mean, you got to do a better job in terms of getting him the football. He is a playmaker, and it's going to open everything up for Goddard and the rest of those guys. I think a big thing, Q, is Patullo just does not have his hand on the rushing game. Last season, Kellen Moore, they did that spread, and the offensive line was just blowing holes through everybody. And they have Becton's now with the Chargers, and they have a lot of injuries up front. So I think that plays into it. But yeah, they need to clean it up and clean up fast, because they're winning games, but you're always kind of shaking your head. And I'm down here. I hear from all, my emailers and the family and friends that they win, but everybody's complaining. So something's amiss with this team, and Sirianni has got to right the ship.
I feel like they want to establish Saquon because they know what he can do. He's off to a slow start, and maybe they're kind of just the load management, milking these carries. But if that offense is not clicking and the ground game's not going, it's not going to open up things in the passing game. Now, anytime AJ Brown has bitched, whined, and complained, the next week, Jalen Hurts force feeds the football. And that might play right into defense, the defensive hands of the Denver Broncos in that secondary. Like, you got to be pretty smart here. Like, I get it. You want your snaps, you want your reps, you want your touches. I kind of wrote it down before we came on the air. It's almost like pencil him in 7 for, $110 and a touchdown. But again, if you're losing because it's taken away from what you're trying to do offensively, and it's all about situational football, AJ Brown's got to understand, hey, you just might be underutilized for a couple games, but you also have to be a pro's pro. You're on a 4-0 team. You're an all pro. You won the Super Bowl. I mean, why be miserable?
Right. He wants his cake and eat it too. You know what I mean? But a win's a win, and they got to keep going. But Surtain, second is going to be eyeing them and trying to ball hawk them. And let's not forget up front, they have Bonito, they have Cooper, Zach Allen. I mean, this Broncos defense can get after people. And the Eagles, as I said, are banked up along the front. So this is going to be a chess game. And Sirianni's got to find a way. And don't forget about Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts has got to play better. We've talked all season. Is he top 5, et cetera? Well, he's got to step up in this situation against a very good defense.
I'm going out, well, not on a limb, because I told you I didn't even think Shedeur Sanders was going to make the Browns roster. I'm at the point right now where, look, I get it. He shouldn't care what the talking heads on the mothership or the network says, or Rex Ryan criticize, but it's all valid, right? But to stand up there and kind of act like an immature jackass and do a mime at your locker just again validates one thing, that Cleveland isn't starting this kid. They're just not. I the more I think about this, he's probably rubbed this organization the wrong way. We already know what transpired on draft night. We already know if the hand was forced or not. And then you get Flacco taking a shot. You get Gabriel taking a shot, his second passive aggressive shot. Say what you want about Gabriel, but if the kid goes out and actually shows he's a serviceable quarterback, I got news for you. It wouldn't shock me if Stefanski basically said he's going to be a starter for the entire season. So now, what I told you before, well, what the hell was the point of having Shedeur Sanders on the roster?
Yeah, Q. It speaks volumes that they went with Dylan Gabriel. And you look at the depth chart after Gabriel got elevated, it's Gabriel, it's Flacco, and then it's Shedeur Sanders. So you're right. There's just a cloud over this situation. And it's like, why did you draft them? There's a mess in Cleveland. We talk about their defense is very good, but the offense has no rhyme, no rhythm. And you just wonder how they're going to be able to fix this situation. I think eventually they will put Sanders out there, because I think the owner got involved here. And I think the owner's going to be like, all right, put the kid out there. And the Browns are happy because they are still front page news, even though they're a very bad team. But it's an ugly situation. And Dylan Gabriel, let's face it, he was a third rounder, and it was kind of a reach when they did that. Not the strongest arm, and we'll see this week how he does over there in London against the Vikings. But I think Brian Flores is going to put a lot of pressure on him, and he's probably going to make some mistakes. And don't forget about Isaiah Rodgers; he's playing extremely well for the Vikings. He'll probably get his hands on the football. But getting back to Shador, yeah, he's just immature. He's a young guy, and this was he needed to go to an organization like, say, like a Kansas City, a veteran team, leadership that could kind of integrate him into their system. But he's gone to a total mess with the Cleveland Browns, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah, that was a little shot he was taking to Rex Ryan. All right, got a couple minutes before we get out of here. Your game ball that you typically give out, your game ball and your lackey. Lackey is just a guy that just spit the bit. Game ball. Oh, man. I know you like that quarterback, sometimes special teams. You're a little more old school on the running back. Game ball, was it a quarterback?
There was not a quarterback, Q.
Then I'm at a loss for words. It had to be a wide receiver then.
It wasn't. And, it's a passing league first now. And this receiver was just dominant. It's Puka Nacua I gave my game ball to for the LA Rams. He had 13 catches on 15 targets, Q. I mean, Stafford was looking for him early and often, 170 yards, 1 TD, and he was just dominant in that win over the Colts. And they were a home dog, and they came out with some teeth. So Nacua is who McVay leans on. I gave him the game ball.
Let's see. You could have made a case for a lot of lackeys, especially these backup quarter. You know what? I'm going to say you gave it to Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, Browning would have been an easy one. And Carson Wentz, who I often gave it to back in his Eagles days. I didn't give it to either of them. Unfortunately, I had to give it to Colts receiver A.D. Mitchell. I mean, that was just such a big play. You feel bad for the young man. He's celebrating right before he scores a 76-yard touchdown, fumbles it out of the end zone. That was a huge play, Q, in terms of turning that game in the Rams' favor. And then, unfortunately, Taylor had that huge long run, and he gets called for holding on it. So just a very bad day for him. He gets the lackey for last week.
All right, Lloyd's going to join me during the week, as always, on Q. But again, give him a follow at Lloyd Vance. Does a great job hosting his own show, Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. Always kind to join me on another edition of Back Your Play. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12 p.m. on NY48 WWON. And always get social with us as we start to close things out. All right, my friend, absolutely wonderful insight as always. Enjoy the slate of games this weekend. And of course, we'll talk on a very busy Football Friday edition of On Q. Appreciate you, pal.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance, does an excellent job as always. Give him a follow on social media. We'll put up the banner right there at Lloyd Vance. Fantastic. He joins me during the week as well on Q, which you can hear Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 on the YouTube channel, as well as the audio versions I mentioned on Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Podchaser as well. Hey, just to remind everyone, BYP is for entertainment purposes only. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. So we went through the scheduling in week 5. That starts off with Thursday Night Football, and we bookend it with Monday Night Football. Don't forget, as always, we are Saturdays and Sundays, 11 to 12 on WWON in New York. And we are powered by our wonderful friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, BYP20. That'll get you involved. 20% off your first purchase. All right, so you got the knowledge, you got the information, you got the insight, and perhaps you enjoyed Back Your Play, and we gave you a little entertainment. We always like to encourage you to bet smart, bet where you head, not over it. But if you say it, play it. If you back it, you're going to stack it. The best of luck with your picks for a week 4, and I hope you enjoy this edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I am your host, Rich Quiñones. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on social media at RichQ on X, also on IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. And again, keep supporting my YouTube channel and the page. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. And we always appreciate and absolutely love the good folks over at NY48 WWON. We'll talk to you next Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12, right here on NY48 WWON. And as always, as I mentioned, if you say it, play it, back it, stack it. Hope you enjoy this edition of Back Your Play. Enjoy week 4. We'll talk to you next week.